morning. It's great to be here today and such an honor to be on the panel with other amazing women. And it's a pleasure to be representing Walmart. I know it's been a great week so far here at GES. I will start by kind of sharing a little bit about Walmart. Walmart is a brand that many people know, so usually there's a lot of comments, suggestions when I say I work for Walmart. But at Walmart, we're focused on providing quality products at affordable prices for our customers. We're really focused on building a resilient and diverse supply chain. So that means working with big and small businesses all around the world. So that includes focusing on entrepreneurs that are growing their business and have started. We've had many companies that have started it within Walmart, just one store at a time, and to larger companies that that have national brands and have expanded around the world. At Walmart, also internally, we talk a lot about every single associate being an entrepreneur, but most importantly, the fact of supporting women. Many say that our founder, Sam Walton, is one of the #1 entrepreneurs in retail. And it's hard to believe that a company that has existed just over 50 years started with just one store in Arkansas and is now in 11,000 locations around the world within 14 years, and then managing our global public policy team and have the opportunity to work on public policy issues for our company in the 28 markets that we operate in, but also share what we're doing both internally and externally as a company. That's what I do for my day job. On the side, I also have the pleasure of being the chair of what we call our Women's Resource Council at Walmart. And the Women's Resource Council is focused on connecting, developing, and advocating for women across the country and around the world. I look forward to sharing. We've done some exciting things in the women's space and in how we've initiated training programs and empowerment initiatives that I look forward to sharing with further during our discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Virginia? My name is Virginia Littlejohn. I am the co-founder and president of Quantum Leaps, which is the global accelerator for women's entrepreneurship. But rather than working with individual women entrepreneurs, we work with governments, with women's business associations, and international organizations that we partner with. And we focus on measurable results that impact gross domestic product. We especially focus on identifying gaps in the women entrepreneurial ecosystem and then incubate initiatives that address those particular gaps. So when we saw a gap in finance for women-owned SMEs and growth-oriented firms, we created and incubated the Global Banking Alliance. We incubated an Access to Corporate Markets initiative called We Connect International. We're currently incubating an initiative to get women entrepreneurs more involved with innovation and technology that's called Future Forward. And we're doing a lot of work in international trade and public procurement right now. I consider myself an advocate for women's entrepreneurship. I've been doing it for quite a long time, dealing with various issues that are burning issues at particular times. And I'm thrilled to also be a member of Walmart's Women's Economic Empowerment Board.
And so what my company does, we are a social impact company that takes shea butter seeds and we get through the entire supply chain working with women's cooperatives to get them products onto the shelf. So what you're trying is a line of products that we sell in Whole Foods Market on our website. We actually just started the onboarding process with Walmart.com, very excited about. And I'm really excited to talk about this issue of diversifying the supply chain, specifically for women. Because when we look at, particularly if, like focusing on Africa for a second, when we look at communities where natural resources are coming from, very rarely do the local communities benefit financially. And shea butter is just one of many. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. That's how I got started in this. I worked in a small village at a community health center and saw so many women coming into the health center and leaving unable to buy medicine. So I started researching income generating activities for women. I learned about shea butter. I never knew shea butter came from Africa. Half my family is Ghanaian. And to see kind of the disconnect between what happens in the local communities and then what's translated in the global marketplace, I wanted to create a connection between local shea butter producers and consumers like you, and bridge the gap and give them the ability to generate living wages by connecting their products to retail locations. And so I have literally gone down the up and down roller coaster ride of being an entrepreneur. And part of being certified as a woman-owned business and a minority business has actually been the way I've been able to grow my business via retail chains. So I'm an advocate for small business owners to certify. It's opened doors for me that I don't think I would have otherwise have had access to. And it's given me the opportunity to scale a lot quicker than I could have done it on my own. And so some of the certifications that we'll probably talk about in this conversation are ones that are essentially, they open the door. They're not the end all be all, but they open the door for business owners to be able to get themselves in front of procurement officers, in front of supplier diversity teams. And it gives you an opportunity to not only pitch your product, but also understand the culture of the company that you want to try to do business with. And so we'll go in a little bit more deeply, but being certified as a minority business and a woman-owned business, I've been able to partner with Toyota, with Facebook. It got us into MGM Resorts. So we sell our products at Whole Foods, but MGM Resorts recently opened a location in the Washington, D.C. area, which is where I'm based. And because they were really looking for local businesses that were minority owned, it opened a door for me to launch an entire spa line that they utilize in their treatments as well as sell in their retail division. So these are just some of the examples that if you were able to position yourself and certify, you actually can connect with larger brands, and it's a fantastic way to grow your business.
I also came to this from a social development background, having worked in rural India, seeing the kind of problems that women were facing, especially with regard to getting regular work with dignity. So we started the company on on a kind of on a positive note, taking great risks because we'll talk about this later about capital, etc. But essentially unable to raise capital from the market, each of the artisans put in 1,000 rupees each, and we got our first 10 lakhs of capital. I'm still not conversant in the dollar thing, so 10 lakhs of capital, and we started. And and gradually over a period of time, after making and selling in the local market, we got connected to IKEA, to the large retailer IKEA, and we've learned a lot in the process, which I would like to share once we enter into the various kind of challenges and support that's needed, to diversify the supply side. So starting with you, Rahama, what were the key challenges that you faced, and what kind of from that, what kind of support do you feel is needed to enable to diversify the supply chain to include women businesses and women workers from around, especially from remote areas and far-flung areas?
Yeah. Well, I always say I had no business starting a business. I didn't. I didn't know the first thing about, a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, marketing, branding. I was going to be a foreign service officer, and so that was my career trajectory. I was an intern at State, and then I also interned at the American Embassy in Burkina Faso. So there was no way in my trajectory that I could have imagined running a business, not only a business, but a global business working on supply chain issues. And so initially for me, it was kind of the learning gap of really understanding the process of putting all the pieces together. So we are seed to shelf. So we get these products in their very raw form, and we do everything from organizing cooperatives, providing them with training, access to capital, access to production equipment. And so for me, it was that learning curve of learning, like, ingredients, learning how to package, learning. And so it was kind of just, getting people to take me seriously, that this was something that I was committed to and that was really important to me. Because of my Ghanaian heritage on my mother's side, I grew up in a family where my mom had a 6th grade education and my dad had a master's degree. And so I saw the disparities when it comes to, it was something that I was very committed to because I saw it as a way to help women generate sufficient income to care for their babies, and being consistent, showing up at events, following up with people, being extremely persistent. One of the tactics that I used when I was trying to get into retail, and it took me 7 years before I was able to get into retail. So it was a very long process. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And I would literally put on my calendar, every 3 weeks, I would follow up with the same person until they responded. And, it's just kind of those challenges of, going through the ups and downs of rejection and just persevering forward. Now, in terms of the communities that we work with in northern Ghana, that's where we work now, we're really creating the ecosystem and developing the infrastructure for these women in these very rural communities to be able to create a high quality product that would meet the standards of a Whole Foods, for example. And so that required a lot of investment in training, a lot of investment in capacity building, a lot of investment in learning the different processing techniques that would ensure a high quality product. And then, of course, navigating the import-export regulations. We work in a country that is an AGOA country, which is the Africa Growth Opportunity Act. So it's an act that allows for tariff-free imports from African countries that have the governance and certain structures in place that abide by kind of U.S. standards. And so that has helped in terms of the costing and being able to import something duty-free in a sense. Mm-hmm. And then I would say lastly, access to capital, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. I self-funded Shailene initially and then begged my dad to give me money many times. And I know a lot of people don't have that. But for me, I self-funded for 8 years and then, borrowed from friends and family to keep the doors open. And then in 2014, I completed my first round of private equity funding with a small fund in New York called the Pan-African Investment Company that is supported by Ron Lauder of Estee Lauder and Dick Parsons, the former head of Citigroup and Time Warner. And so for me, I've kind of gone through the entire chain of the ups and downs of creating a business, but also being able to attract the resources needed to help me scale.
Remarkable. That's been quite a journey.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
When did I write a book?
We're waiting for that. So, Virginia, you've also been in this for many years and supporting women at all different stages to achieve their potential.
So the piece I wanted to talk about was supplier development and capacity building. But I want to say one thing building on what you were saying about certification. I mentioned We Connect International in my opening remarks. Greta Shetler, could you please stand up? Greta is the #2 at We Connect International. And I would really echo your point about how important certification is. But I want to tell you some other strategies that exist in various countries that you can also look at for your own countries. The big organization that does certification of women's business enterprises in the U.S. is Women's Business Enterprise National Council, which Walmart is an active member of both it and We Connect International. They have a training program for their women-owned businesses, some of them just through the regular program, but they have a program with the Dartmouth University Business School called TUG. Many corporations also, especially the best corporations in the United States, have supplier development councils. Those are typically a selective process where they bring in some of their best women and minority suppliers and work with them on capacity building. It's really, really useful to have something like that. Walmart, again, is one of the excellent companies in that area. IBM, Accenture, a number of others do work there. But that is a way you really can scale your business quite significantly. One case study I wanted to briefly mention to you is a company called SDI International. They started off working with having about 30 or 40% of their own suppliers being certified WBEs, Women's Business Enterprises, or certified minority business enterprises. And they're a very significant aggregator for both women and minority suppliers in the United States that are too small themselves to go after, a Fortune 100 company, for example. But this really gets them into the process. SDI does all of the back office work. So they handle the invoicing, reports, and a lot of the management process. They have grown exponentially through this particular strategy. IBM was their initial client. They did such a great job for IBM in North America. IBM then asked them if they could do it on other continents. They have offices around the world now, and they're a great way to start getting into one of the major corporations. Women's businesses also that are not big enough themselves sometimes to go after particular contracts create joint ventures, partnerships, and consortia where 2 or 3 or 4 different companies together go after a larger contract that they can meet collaboratively. And I think that's all I want to say at this moment.
Women as well, to be engaged and part of such a huge network. Would you like to share some of your experiences as to what Walmart has done to enable women to come into these things?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And we did, as we were talking earlier, we said we wanted this panel to be fun and interactive. Yes. So stop us if you want to engage and ask questions. We like to have some fun at Walmart, and my colleagues that are here in the room promised they would sit on the front row. They're on the third row. We also do a Walmart cheer. So if it doesn't seem interactive, I'm going to have them stand up and do the Walmart cheer. But no, as I mentioned earlier, our focus is really on serving our customers, and the retail industry is changing rapidly. So that means what we're doing in-store and online is extremely important. And that means we have to really be connecting and having relationships with our suppliers. So we operate in 28 different countries. And I don't have to tell you that a customer in Bentonville, Arkansas is purchasing something very different than our B2B business here in India. So we're constantly trying to make sure that we have the products that are relevant to our customers and communities around the world. So that means focusing on specific initiatives. And in the introduction, I said, one of the things I'm most proud about is one of our initiatives that we launched in 2011, which is what we call our Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative. For that initiative, we made a few commitments. The first one was to source $20 billion from women-owned businesses in the U.S. within 5 years. Wow. We've hit that commitment.
That's B as in boy, $1 billion, not M as in Mary.
Thank you. The second commitment that we made was to double our sourcing with women-owned businesses around the world, and we're in the process of doing that. But as you kind of heard from the comments already this morning, what we really learned as we started talking to our women suppliers was the fact that the skills and training that are needed to get into a supply chain, whether, again, you're a small business or a large business. So we committed in 2011 to train over 1 million women and to focus specifically on the agriculture community, women in the retail sector, as well as women in factories for women-owned businesses. But most importantly, giving women the skills to have the confidence to be leaders in the workplace. And that's something that we have carried on from a training perspective here in India. So in 2016, we launched what we call our Women Entrepreneurship Development Program in India. Working with communities and making sure we're connecting with the communities and the women-owned businesses, you have to have great partners, right? So Walmart is a big brand. We have a massive supply chain. We started as a logistics company, but essentially, if you're not working with the right partners and if we're not all working together on this, you can't be as effective as you need to be. And we're also in the business that, because of our size and scale, we know that when we push our suppliers to also empower women across their network, that helps everyone. And so in India, we started in 2016 our first class, which included 36 women. Again, training for them, but we did both soft skills. We taught them that balance sheet that you're right. I started in merchandising and I failed. And they were like, go over to global policy. You can talk numbers. But teaching them everything from the balance sheet to marketing to how to interact with customers, how to interact with businesses. I think as women, we know that we're pretty good at just continuing to drive, but it's about that network too. And so we were proud to have 36 women go through our program here in India. And out of those 36 female-owned businesses, 11 of them have already become Walmart suppliers. And then this year, we have doubled that initiative to 64 women within the training courses. And the partnership is with WeConnect and Amity University here. We're on track to impact over 75,000 women here in India through this training process. All of the women in this room, we're driving the economy. So that's why businesses are stepping up. And I think that's why we've done a lot, but we probably still have a long way to go.
And these women have, with a lot of hand-holding and on-the-job training, been able now to manage not just their own work, but work of others in their village, to ensure that it is of the right quality and that it is made on time, because that's another big challenge. How do you make all these on time, and how do you ensure it's the right quality? But I mean, it's been the one, certainly the motivation, the leadership training, the chance to not just earn an income, but to also in the process enable other women to get empowered and play a bigger role in the company, in their village, as well as their communities that they are in. And so going ahead on this, talking a little bit more on, what are the kind of hand-holding and support that you talked quite a bit about that, what Walmart is doing with WeConnect. And Virginia, can you also talk to that a little bit more? What is the kind of support that is needed, that you feel is most effective to help women enterprises grow?
Another area that's hugely important generally, and it was in many ways an underpinning of what Walmart did, especially internationally, because we had good research in the United States that we had built up over many, many years. But a huge area of importance for Walmart was identifying where women-owned businesses were, which businesses were male-owned versus female-owned, because many countries don't have sex disaggregated data, and that's a big issue. Then understanding the industry sectors where women business owners are and how they align with what the corporation needs. And also the overall issue of making the business an economic case, because you have to also talk your own corporation into why this is great for business, right? Another area is the role of women's business associations. They, in my opinion, are one of the most important areas to focus on if you're really going to be serious about access to markets, because you have to do training, you have to do capacity building. You also want your government as a partner to realize that they need to hold hands with the women entrepreneurial sector, the corporate sector, the banking sector, the training and incubators, the universities. The critical partnership, though, is women's business associations and national governments, bringing the other actors into the equation. Also, another important area is linking with national trade promotion organizations, because that's another aspect of the corporate value chain, being able to partner also on collaborative initiatives. But almost every country in the world has a national trade promotion organization, and they can do very important work in capacity building. I already have mentioned We Connect International several times. That's a critical organization that certifies with offices in 25 countries right now, but they do certifications in more than 100 countries with regional relationships and so forth. And then capacity building to move up the global value chain. And I wanted to mention something that Quantum Leaps is doing right now with IBM Watson and also with Pacific Gas and Electric, a big utility in California. We are working on future-proofing women-owned businesses so they will be much less impacted by disruptions in technology. So we've done a series of trainings on big data and analytics. We've done 4 events on IBM Watson and cognitive computing. It's a form of artificial intelligence. We're particularly focused on larger women-owned businesses that have real ability to scale. And we have been interviewing businesses that are from 5 million up to $2 billion in sales, women-owned businesses that have the opportunity to ultimately become members of the Fortune 500 in some cases. With Watson, we're also creating a user group for Watson. We've partnered quite deeply with the Women Presidents Organization. That is an organization of women with sales of at least $1 million if they're services companies, or $2 million and up if they're product companies. They're in many countries around the world also. And we're also working with that cohort of high-growth women-owned businesses on design thinking training to help them move into artificial intelligence. With Pacific Gas and Electric, we're working with some of their largest women-owned business suppliers. We have been interviewing them on the impact of technology and disruption on their companies, and we're putting together a training curriculum based on our interviews with companies of up to $2 billion a year in sales to get their other women suppliers aware of the importance of advanced and emerging technologies and what they really need to do to future-proof their business so not to be roadkill as a result of disruptions, which are enormous. We also are looking at what we call sharks, which are emerging technologies, and whales, which are sometimes larger companies such as SAP that provide capabilities across many technologies, but so they can figure out ways of partnering rather than losing their core business as a result of a company like SAP moving into their space.
Yeah, thank you. You do something called reverse exposure visits that a lot of the women you work with in Ghana actually come across to see the markets to which they are supplying. Can Can you talk a little bit to that, and also, what are the other kind of strategies you've used to access the financial and technical resources, maybe, to
Right.
build your company to the level it is?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about access to the market, right? But I think that's part of the solution. You can give women access to the market, but if they can't sell in the market and be successful, then it's not sustainable. And giving these, newer, smaller businesses, when they get access to this market, these large retail organizations should also ensure that they're building in a different way of handling these suppliers within their supply chain and within their retail chain. So I'll just give an example of when we launched into Whole Foods. When you go into the store, there are end caps, and usually you have to pay to be in an end cap, and it's really expensive. We launched in 7 stores, and then we grew. Now we're in 125 locations along the East Coast. I couldn't afford an end cap, but because they were really interested in helping, the small business grow, they gave us that space and didn't charge us for it. And there are other, companies that do the same thing. So it's employing certain tactics that you wouldn't do for a larger business who could afford it, but allows that small business to be able to get into the market, have access, but then give them marketing support so that they can build attraction so that they can sell and do well. And so I think it's really important that when we talk about giving access, we also talk about how do we sustain it? How is it sustainable? And at the end of the day, if you're not selling, you're not going to have that retail shelf or that retail space. In terms of the reverse site visits that we've done, we've done 2, and one was in partnership with the Smithsonian Institute as part of Peace Corps' 50th anniversary celebration, where we brought 3 women from northern Ghana, and they produced shea butter on the National Mall for a 10-day period. And it was fantastic. I mean, these are women who, didn't have passports, had never traveled to their country's capital, and now they're in Washington, D.C. And they're making shea butter, and they're talking about a traditional practice that is very much ingrained in their culture and has, become this like global product. But a lot of people don't know where this product comes from, and they're not connected to the lives of the women who are these traditional producers. And so that speaks to the importance of creating supply chains that also involve people who are at the beginning, who are able to see the entire process, the entire value chain, the entire supply chain, and interact with it so that they understand that they're part of these like global markets and that they rightfully should benefit from these global markets. And the second one we did was in partnership with Whole Foods, where we had 2 women come from northern Ghana, and they visited 26 of the Whole Foods locations that we were in the North Atlantic region. And so I rented a car, and we essentially like drove in the Mid-Atlantic region, to the Boston area, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and just went into stores and met buyers and did demos, interacted with customers. And
all
again,
in national regalia.
yeah, they have their traditional, exactly. And those are the types of experiences that I believe transform supply chains. Because it's one thing to be a shea farmer in a small village, and it's another thing to actually see the product that your labor was involved in to be on shelf and see it with the competition and interact with the store buyers and share your story and tell that store buyer why this is so important to you, to your family, to your community members. So that's what I believe, every single one of us, every single person in this room is a consumer. You vote with your dollar, and a lot of these large retail chains, they need us to support these businesses that are including women in the supply chain. Because it's so important at the end of the day, if people aren't buying these products, they're not going to be sustainable. And I just I couldn't emphasize enough the importance of partnerships. And we both touched upon that. Shailene would not be where we are today if we didn't have partners. And, the Minority Supplier Diversity Council is a partner of ours. We're certified as an MBE with them. But building these partnerships allowed me to be able to scale the company much quicker than doing it alone. And in today's age, you cannot grow a business unless you have strategic partnerships. And some of the resources that I would say, this is a very international audience, depending on what industry, what product, what service that you're trying to bring to market, I think start first within your community. And so for me, I'm part of the diaspora, and I've really leveraged relationships within the diaspora. I also think that connecting with embassies, if you're trying to get your products international, start there. And you talked about some of the trade associations and international organizations that can be supportive. They have a lot of support services. They have the SCORE program where they connect you with an advisor who helps you with your business plan, your marketing plan. And that was actually what I used to secure my first round of capital. And then to the capital question, money is all about relationships. I mean, business is all about relationships. You can't get access to money if you don't cultivate the right relationships, because people give money to people they trust. Yeah. And so if you're thinking to yourself, how can I get my first round? How can I gain access to capital? It's really who's in your network, who are you cultivating these relationships with, and how can you leverage that to get access to the funding that you need. And I know that one of the questions that we were going to discuss was this whole thing about when a small business scales to work with a Walmart or a large retail chain. Sometimes you need that capital to be able to respond to that large order. And I would say not only the capital to deliver the order, but you also need enough working capital to sustain you for the time period before you get paid. Because normally it could be anywhere from net 30 to net 90. And so that's inventory that you ship that you're not getting immediate cash from. So it's really important, again, this goes back to the sustainability, for every small business, every entrepreneur to fully understand your financial model and really understand the margins that you're working with. Because it might sound really great to scale with a large retailer, but then if you're cash strapped, it actually might hurt you in the longer run or even in the short run. So those are some of the things that, and you can get help. There's of course, different things like PO financing, but you have to be careful about the interest rates and things of that nature. But really understanding the financial model, how to ensure and build in sustainability is so important.
I still truly believe people like to interact with people, and we like to know the stories of the products. So in many of our stores, we create areas where we have local signage to share where a product's coming from. We have events in stores. In the U.S., we just did big initiatives in store around our U.S. manufacturing initiative and highlighting those suppliers that are growing in the U.S. Your relationship with the buyer that you have at X retailer is also really important. And talking to the store manager, building that relationship, sharing why his or her customers wanted the local product. And so don't think, even if it's a Walmart or it's a Whole Foods or it's another retailer that seems big and massive, that those buyers don't want those relationships too, and they know that you know your product better than they know your product, and so you have to share with them ideas, and that's how the whole system works together. So I think sometimes our buyers will tell us that, people do come in and think that they have to follow. Of course, we have a structure and a policy in which you follow, but if you can start having those conversations and building a relationship with the supplier, that's where it's sustainable and long-lasting. The second thing I will say, talk about a lot, right? And I'm overwhelmed. When I think about sort of stories in which we hear from the women in our training programs, is one of our women-owned businesses that went through the first round of training here in India. She, talked about everything that she learned, and she was doing some business already in the U.S. and Europe.